Hi, we are preparing a puppet in Adobe Animate to work with motion capture, so we can use video recordings to create animations. Today we will concentrate on a puppet. The goal is to create a rough character turnaround so we can learn how to use a puppet, and we will briefly cover our approach to automate it with motion capture. In the last video we built an arm and used the simple motion capture to automate the elbow movement, but that only covers the front view, and we did not really cover how do we make the character rotate. To figure out how to make it work with Flash, let's start by reviewing how to work with symbols. It's really hard and soul of the project. Every time we make a new body part, we create a symbol, and we will set them up in a way that allow us to swap the body parts based on the desired position. It's important to not move anything left and right when we are creating them, because the base point of every single symbol will be safe. Let's review it in detail. If we want to work with hand, we want elbow to look outside when the wrist is inside, and we want the opposite when the wrist is outside. In fact, we have 4 zones because we can have our wrist inside, outside, and sideways both up and down. And this is exactly what we are gonna do. We set up the symbol in order to have all of this rotation inside it. We'll use the label to mark the layout that we will work with. We will have some empty frames now, and we will need them in the future in case we want to add even more options for the swap sets. But let's review now something more simple. Almost every part of the body needs to look different based on the character rotation. Let's take a foot as an example. When we rotate the character, front view is a regular foot, back is the same but flipped horizontally, and 3/4 views make the foot look a little bit smaller. It will be even more complicated with more complex character, but this is why we are working with Stickman, because we want to have this option to simplify. After we have all this different position ready, we are done with the symbol. Now let's review how to work with them. Let's exit the foot symbol and see what we will do. We covered in the last video how we use the guide circle in order to rotate, but we can also swap the symbol itself. Place the timeline to the frame where you need it to update, in this case it's a 3/4. Select all the layers in the frame, hit F6 to create a keyframe. Now this keyframe can be set up different from the previous one. Now let's set up everything in this keyframe to look in a 3/4 view. This includes both legs, body, head, and everything else. After you finish swapping up, you can see that the body changed a bit, so let's move our guides in order to make sure that the legs and the arms are still attached to the shoulders and hips. As you can see, when we move the timeline back and forth, now we can have the rough turnaround. Let's review the whole process in a little bit more over details by building the leg for our template character. To build the legs themselves is the same process as in the last video for the arm, but we basically replicate it, so I will show it on the screen, but will not get into the details, so refer to this video. Now we're working with a calf, but we essentially in the same place that we were with elbow. Now, instead of working with the wrist, we will work with the foot. So let's enter the foot symbol, and since it's a Stickman, there is not a lot of complexity, so we can pretty much set up the foot and we are good to go. Now let's build the parts of the lower. Let's make sure that we adjust the size for the 3/4 views, let's make sure that we flip it for the back view, and in general make sure that the foot stays in the same place. So in the future we can just swap it and it stays in the same place but looks different. When we are done, we have the leg that is ready for 3/4 view. We need to repeat it for all parts of the body, and the character is ready and when all frames are set. You can see that it's quite a laborious process with a lot of clicking around, but after we are done, we can move the timeline and we can see that the character moves a bit, and we can automate this whole process in the end. So let's go ahead, move our timeline and complete our turnaround. Just move the timeline, F6 to create the new frames, swap the symbols, and you're good to go. As you can see, that animation is much more simple when we have the proper puppet ready, but we can actually simplify it even more with the motion capture. The process to continue is fairly simple, just repeat, rotate until you have the full turnaround for your puppet. And at this point, if we would be just animating manually, we would be ready for our manual animation. Let's review the process, how it would look if we would do it manually, so we understand what exactly are we going to automate. We set the scene, we create the labels that mark up what is the scene, what character is doing, etc. It's not gonna be the long one, it's still an animation, so our scene probably gonna be like a minute maximum. Set a puppet to the starting position for each frame or each scene, because we will have the cameras that may be looking from behind, looking from far away, looking from the close, And this is where you can kind of break down your scenes and you can set up the character to the initial position. As we can see, simple turnaround is already helpful here because we can set up the character in a proper position and in a proper orientation too. But in order to automate it, it's very laborious process because when we put it in the original position, now we doing the breakdowns, now we put it in a more position and a more position until we have the animation ready. So this is a process that we want to tackle. Instead of just having all those in-betweens and the traditional process of animation, we want to record a video of what the character is supposed to do in a scene, and we want to recognize the joint motion so the character can repeat it. And after we are not happy with some parts or in general want to improve the look, we can do the manual adjustments. That allows us to have the editable keyframes at the end, so the rough pass of animation is ready, but we can actually adjust it in a very free way, which is a very huge benefit when we're comparing it with something like the character animator, whereas the editing is kind of finicky. I mean, we can record it over, then record over, and then record over, but we always have to kind of aim, and it's very hard if you just a couple of frames off. In the next video, we'll cover how to use the puppet to animate the front flip using the video. We'll compare a result with the ones that we had from the character animator. Plus, we'll use the rotating me video to make sure that we can use the turnaround along with the video and we can automate the rotation. At the moment, the process is a little bit involved, so I would like to simplify it in the future. So all the feedback is welcome. Hit me up here or hit me up on Discord or follow me on Twitch. Also, let me know if you have some ideas, if I'm missing something, if you can understand anything. Cheers!